of X++ programming and from Muthu. And I also welcome our group volunteers named Rachit and Satya sir. He might be dropped off, but he was there, I know. Okay, so basically, we have been doing this volunteering since last year, and we have progressed a lot. We have now more than 600 members in our group. We are we are having proposition to increase this. As a group volunteer, we have already given um, sessions on Azure, Dynamics Finance and Operation, Business Central even we have covered. And next probably we will be having more like warehouse we have done. We have done vendor onboarding. So we will be doing more on the finance and operation as well as on Azure and Business Centrals, or basically focusing on business applications. We have also done business applications like the portals, Power Platform, and also we are getting support from Microsoft and our own companies, but they're not yet sponsoring these events. So we will be looking forward for sponsors also. In case your company is important, like if your company is willing to sponsor us, then definitely we can display their logos in the PPTs. So we will talk about the group more. If you want to connect with us, definitely you can get connected through the LinkedIn. This is our Twitter channel, and this is our YouTube channel. Group volunteers as of now are 4, starting with Rachit, Umesh, Satya sir, and Rahul sir. We all have crossed these limits, but we have not updated, so we will update it soon. These are our group logos. These are the past sessions which have been delivered throughout the year. And meet our today's session, which is on X++ by Muthu. And you have to stay with me for the next slide because we have something very exciting in the next slides. So I will not reveal that, but I will just hand over to Muthu. I will just speak one word with him regarding his profile. Basically, he is very experienced guy, and he is into trainings, corporate trainings, and yeah, and he has already a Power Platform, very good Power Platform solution architect, as well as Dynamics 365 solution architect. He's currently working with Accenture Hyderabad, I think, and he's living in Hyderabad since 2018. So let's hear more about him. I will just change the slides. Yeah. So I'm handing over to Muthu. All yours.
Okay. Thank you, Umesh, and thanks, Rachit, first of all, for giving me this opportunity to present this this content today. And very good evening to all. Some of them might know me. People who don't know me, this is Muthu, and I live in Hyderabad now, and I have over 13 years of experience in Dynamics. And I started my career in 2008. Started working from 4.0, 5.0, 6.0, and now in D365. I'm also a certified solution architect for F&O and also a certified solution architect for Power Platforms as well. So this is about me, and in today's session, we will be primarily talking about the very basics of X++ programming and the best practices what we need to follow. This is going to be very high level. The reason is I wanted to start off with the very basics and then followed by the intermediate and the expert level of trainings. And this is a very basic level. So this is the whole agenda that we have. So if you see, we will talk about the introduction to AOT, what is AOT, and enums, what is enums and how we need to create them, EDDs and tables, and what is the best practices we need to follow. And there are some additional tips and information I will be providing on the best practices. And also we will talk about what is project and models and how to create them and how to create a packages and so on. So we will take up Q&A, and feel free to stop in case if you have any questions. I'm happy to answer that as well. So having said that, let's go to the first topic for the day, which is introduction about Application Explorer. So this Application Explorer and AOT, so-called, right? So from the previous version and D365 are same. These are primarily stores the definition of elements, and each of these elements are initiated and show the content in the application according to their object behaviors. And this application object tree will also consist of your resources and other references files. For example, when we say resources, it could be your images, it could be your certificate files. When we say references, it could be your URL, DLLs and all other things. But there is one key differences which we can notice from the previous version of AX and D365, which is in AX 2012 and all, when we go to AOT, we can just right click on the tables and we can right click and create any other object that we would want to. Whereas in D365, it's not the case. We can only view the objects and we can see the code of that objects. We can find the references, only key pieces, right? Certain other than creation, we would be able to do many of the important features in AOT screen. And how to access the AOT, I will show you now. And also there are two different views which we can actually see from this Application Explorer, which is one we will call it as a classic view. The second one is actually a model view. The classic view is the one which you see as this. It is actually going to group the elements based on the object types. All the tables will be placed under the table node. All the classes will be placed under the class nodes, and so on. Whereas when we say model view, each of this object view will be shown under a model category. For example, when we create, you may have 3-4 different models, so you can see the similar structure under each one of the models respectively. Umesh, if you could, can I take the screen and share my screen? Or else, Umesh, it's okay. We will show the things all at once in the end of the session. Let's cover the theoretical part. Is it okay?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. Now coming to the next thing, we will be talking about base enums and EDT. I would say these are the key objects that many of us will actually work a lot, and very important object not to duplicate them as well. What happens is when we say base enum, so let's say if the user wants to give a set of literals, set of values to a field, then ideally base enum will be the good choice, and that is the main purpose of the enum. So if you want to give a fixed number of values to a field, for example, if we have a gender, right? So we can say male and female. Maybe we can say the weekdays, right? It is going to be 7 days. So all those kind of very limited and constant values, those will be created and stored as part of enums. And the second thing is the enums are stored in with the numerical values. In AX 2012 and all, we can see the numerical values in the property itself, and we can change it also. Whereas in D365, we cannot see the numerical values, but the enums are actually stored in the database. So we have two different tables which stores enum name separately and their values in a separate table. So if you want to see these details in the database level, then you have to query to those two tables to see the actual values. And the very important thing when we create an enum is to ensure we are giving a proper label, because the label is the important thing that actually shows up on the front end, the user, from a user perspective. But if the labels are not given, your enum is going to show in the blank value without a label, right? So it is not going to make any meaningful, it is not going to give a meaningful information to anybody. So we need to ensure that the labels are given. There is one other point which I would like to highlight as part of the base enum, which is we will have a property called is extendable. So basically, if the is extendable property is set to no on the base enum, that means you cannot extend the enum in any further extensions you cannot do. So you might look at if you look at any of the standard enums, some of the standard enums are marked in that way. And if you would like to add additional enums to it, then you'll have to probably raise a Microsoft request, and then they will enable it for you, or you have to find a different approach to achieve your requirement. But if you are an ISV, or if you're working for any project through which you don't wanted to share or extend the enum any further, then ensure that the property is marked no. So that is one key point which I would like to highlight on the enum part. Now, the extended data type, right? So this is actually when we say extended data type, it's actually a primitive data type, and we create extended data type for reusability purpose. That's the main thing that we are seeing. So instead of creating the standard data type, like say integer, string, and all in n number of places, we can create one EDT which will carries the similar property, and the same property you can achieve in many places. And EDTs again will be represented with a label. So we need to ensure that the proper label is given, and this EDT can be used as a variable, and it can be used in your fields also. So this is something that is should be created very properly. Many cases when we do the code review, we understand that there is a enum for customer account, and when the customer requirement states that the customer wants to store their customer name or last name, something like that, then people will not look at and try to use the standard EDT. Instead, they will create it. But ideally, the best practice is to try to leverage the standard EDT as much as we can. When there is a situation where we cannot leverage it, that's when we go for a new EDT. And each and every field that we create should have a EDT associated to it. That is one of the critical BP check will be done from a code review perspective, right? Okay. So before we talk about tables, do we have any questions so far?
No, I don't see anything in the chat window.
Okay. All right. So the next topic that we will be look at is actually tables. So what are primary purpose of tables? The tables are the main thing which stores the database. It stores all the data starting from your parameter table, master table, inventory table, posted journal vouchers, and so on. And tables are the important thing, the important object that will actually use to show the content on the form and collect the data from the user as well. And these tables are also used in the report to shows your analytic data as well. So these are the main purpose of the table. Now the table is represented in the row and column structure in your database. It's like more like a spreadsheet, and the table also contain your metadata, not your business data. And now when we say tables, now tables are actually two different types tables we have in AX. One is a regular table. When we say regular table, it's all like a normal table. Whatever transaction we perform, every other transactions will be committed to the database, and it can be used for any inquiry purpose or data collection purpose or for report purposes. But when we say temporary table, these are very specifically used for some need, and the data in these temporary tables will not be committed to database. Now we have two different types of temporary tables that can be created in AX. One is actually in-memory table, then next one is tempdb tables. So we use in-memory table for only when we have the scenario where we will have to load only a few amount of data. The data volume is very limited or very less, then we will use in-memory. Wherever when we have a huge volume of data that should be processed and stored and then retrieved on the reports, then we will use the tempdb table. The reason why we are using huge volume of data with MDB and less volume of data within memory is due to Your in-memory table will always store your data either in your client tier or a server tier, whereas your TempDB data is actually stored your data in the database until your scope is valid. Once the scope is over, it is actually going to erase the data. And the next thing, if you see the same thing which we talk about, that these tables in-memory tables will not come into database, whereas your TempDB will actually lies on the database, but it is until some point of time, not like a regular table. The third thing is that point number 3 is we cannot apply any security level configurations or requirement related to security won't be fulfilled with in-memory type of table, whereas it can be fulfilled with your TempDB tables. And we cannot use your in-memory table as a buffer, whereas you can use a TempDB table as a buffer. Other than this, your indexes, your join, more of the capability like a similar like a regular table. The TempDB will also follow the similar pattern, but in-memory tables are very restricted in its own advantages, right? But again, in-memory table is very beneficial when you actually have very limited data to be processed. Can we go to the next slide, please, Umesh?
Yeah, so we have actually two questions. What is the meaning of a scope is valid here in TempDB table from Mega? And the other question is from Sairam, which is what is the optimum size for which we can use the in-memory tables?
Okay, so what is the meaning of scope is valid here in TempDB. So when we say scope, we will talk more about scoping the classes when we talk about the classes. But when we say scope, when we declare a variable, the variable value assigned to that variable is not going to be forever. It is only limited scope. When we say the lifetime of that particular value stored in that variable. So for example, if you use a for loop, let's say you are writing a while statement and you are assigning some value to a table buffer. When you come out of that while loop, the table buffer value will be erased. It will be gone. You need to deselect the value for that particular variable. So that is called a scope here. So when we say TempDB, the TempDB object scope is alive till that particular method scope only. When you come out of that method, the value will be erased. So we have to redo it again. And when we talk about what is optimum size for which we really don't have any particular size to define. Whereas I would say that let's say for example you need to create a TempDB. Most of the situation we create the TempDB table or in-memory table on a report requirement. Let's say you are actually processing a transaction like thousands and like lakhs and lakhs of transaction. You are doing a grouping, you are doing a lot of other things. Then in-memory is a not approach to go with. The TempDB is a better approach to go with. Whereas if you have a very limited content to be processed and showed on the report or form, then you can go with the in-memory table.
So I think next question is live example of in-memory where we can where we are using it.
Live example of in-memory table. For example, let's say you are using a sales transaction, correct? The sales transactions table you can use. Then any transaction level tables can be used, but when we say for example, when we have the date ranges applied, even for a sales order transaction, you are going to show the information for only certain days or 1 week of time. Then you can use in memory table. Let's say if the dates are very open, then I can run the report for maybe 1 year, 10 years, or 5 years for that matter. Then we have to use that MDB table. So the volume is important actually. So based on the volume, it can be differentiated.
Perfect. I think hope all the questions are answered. Let's move ahead. Thank you.
Okay, so the next object that we will see is about queries. So query is an object that is used to retrieve the data by using a query classes. So this object will actually use table as your data source. So this query object will works based on your tables, and the tables, data sources, and the data sources primarily be with your tables. Now you can have multiple tables defined here, and you can give the ranges, you can give the relations, everything, like how you can do the form data source design and how you can do the report data source design. The similar way this can be done, but only with what is the benefit that I'm going to get with query is that you can repurpose it. You need not to do the same thing again and again. So you create one query, you can repurpose this query in your forms, you can repurpose this query in your multiple reports, and also you can refer this particular query in your code, and you can do through the data set what is retrieved in the query. And that's the primary purpose of this query. And also you can define the order by, you can also define the group by features here. So based on that, your output also works to the similar fashion. Okay, so now views, right? So views are similar to tables only, but these are virtual tables. This is not going to store any data in your databases, but it is actually dynamically change the view. What when I say dynamically change the view, what it means, what it means is that, let's say you have a customer table, you have created a view for that customer table, and you have 100 records in the customer table. Over a period of time, your customer will add a new customers to the databases. So that time we need not to refresh anything in your views. So the moment when you access, it's going to dynamically show the additional data for you. And view users in the view, you can use the you will use query as your databases. And again, this view can be used in your forms report and X++ also. For example, let's say I will give you a scenario where the view will be very optimal option for you. Let's say we need to calculate the sum of sales quantity customer wise, or the total sum sales value customer wise. Then what we can do, we can create one query. That query will have a preloaded value, and then you can use this query and you can take the output directly. Now instead of view, if you directly write the code, always you have to write while select or select sum of in a number of places. Instead, you can actually organize that code into views, and then you can use this view as many times as you want. And when we use views on this kind of scenarios, the performance is going to be faster because the data is already loaded. So we are going to only reference the data here. The next one is the classes. This is where we will actually do most of our logical part here. And the class will consist of variables and methods, right? And when we declare a object construction, and when we declare an object for a class, then that object refers to the it will hold the references of that particular class method as well as the variable. So the variable that the object stores, that refers to as an instance variable, and the methods that is actually hold with the respect to that variable, that is called instance method. Now, the instance variables are, when we say instance variable, that is used to store the values, and then you can perform transaction, you can perform a logical transaction on top of that variables. That are the primary use of that. When we say instance method, it is like a method which has a set of statements or a logic written in a sequence. So when we invoke the instance method, then the entire logic is going to be performed. The logic can be selecting a customer, and if the customer is so and so, we may need to update some value, or we may need to create some reference in some other table. These are defined as logic. And when we invoke this instance method, the particular logic will be executed in the sequences, and the respective requirement will be met. And this is an example how instance method is referred to. So when we say instance method, here we are saying my class. My class is actually in my object name, and when I say dot and method name, that means in my class is the class name, and there I have created an object, and I'm trying to use the method which is part of that class. That's how it is done. And when we say static method, these methods either run on a server or a client. And when we say static, we need not to create any variable for that. We can use the scope resolution operator, through which we can actually call the logic, and then we can perform the operation. This you can typically see in your find method, exist method of all the tables, even construct method from the class. But if you see my class dot method name, you typically see this kind of example in your run method in the class, right? And main methods are the starting point for any execution, and this method will actually initialize the variable for the class, and it also takes the args parameter. So in the args parameter, you will actually certain properties are there. For example, you can identify the record from the args variable, args parameter. You can understand the menu item that is being called, or you can check whether the respective menu item is called. If the menu item is expected to be called from, if your custom menu item is expected to call from customer form, not from the sales order form, you can write a validation over there. And if you wanted to read a value from the customer form through this button, and you wanted to perform some operations for all these, conditional check and the value being passed and retrieved, all those purpose, we will use this aux parameter in the main method. And these are the modifiers. These are the method modifiers that we have, which can be used method wise. Whenever you declare a method as public, this actually follows the oops concept also. Oops concept only, the first three things at least. So when we say public, the method can be overridden in any child classes, and it is open for access to everybody and anybody. When we say the method is actually private, these private methods are only accessed from within the class, and within the class it cannot be used in the subclasses or the child classes. When we say protected, it can be called in your in the same class and the subclass that extend your parent classes. That's what this three public, protected, and private is all about. Now the server keyword, right? So this server keyword will actually tell you where your code should execute, right? So whenever we write a static method, for example, let's take the example of find method only. Most of the find methods are actually going to say server. That means that select statement or the logic which is given on the find method will be executed on the server, from the server, from not from the client front. And if you want to override that concept, and if you want to execute in the client front, then you can use the word client. And we have another keyword called display. So this display is majorly to display the values. For example, let's say I want to show the percentage value in a form. So I write a display method, say this dot the unit price divided by quantity, or quantity divided by unit price. And if I use this logic with the display modifier in the method, then I can use this method to show the value based on my calculation on the forms or on the reports. Now, whenever we use the display method, the main thing which we need to notice, we need to cache this method. And for caching this display method, there are two ways we have. One, either you can write an attribute when you write a display method, and you can cache the value. And or else you can actually, whenever you create a new control and define your display method on the forms, you can cache it there as well. So caching is very important on the display method, because every time when the form is loaded, every time when you traverse through the record, your display logic is going to be executed. So if it is already cached, it will not create any performance issue. Now the edit methods. So the edit method functions the similar way as a display method, but only thing is you will be able to edit the values here on the edit method, right? And the final keyword is used when we declare any method as a final. That means you cannot, when you in the any of the subclasses, you cannot override this final method. That's the main use of that final method. And with this you can use it for any critical methods. It could be posting or update delete methods which you don't want somebody to extend from the base class, right? So that's where we use the final method. And this is the last keyword is internal. I think most of you would have heard about it. This is actually to restrict the method accessibility within the model. That means when you write a method and when you say the method is internal, this method can be accessed within your model. If somebody is trying to extend or if somebody trying to do anything in a different model, this is not going to be accessible. That's the main use of the internal. I This internal keyword is majorly used or very good to be used for most of the ISVs, because they might not want the customer to override the main logic and create a problem to the application. So the internal is very useful for the ISVs. It doesn't mean that the project cannot use it. It can, however, use it, but when we go for a project, it is only one team who will be implementing it. So based on the requirement and the situations, we'll have to use this internal keyword. Umesh, next slide, please. Okay. So till now, what we have looked at is we have seen some of the very key components on like how we will create the enums and what are the enums, EDTs, followed by tables, and then followed by queries, views, and classes. If you look at this, the content was organized in such a way that we started with creating a new element and then using that element to a table, and the table will be used as a data source in the view, and the table can be used and the query will be used in the views, right? And views, queries, and tables will be used in the classes. So this is how the content has been structured. So from the UI perspective, right? So forms and the reports are those are not actually covered on this topic. Maybe we will be seeing in the subsequent sessions. As this was very basic, so we covered the classes today. And the next thing is we will write a lot of code, but we need to ensure that we followed Microsoft's standard for two reasons. One, the standard rules should be followed in any coding. That's the first thing. And secondly, by following that, you will ensure that you are not actually deviating from what should not be done. So when you follow the practice, whatever we will be doing it right. That's the main intention of this session. So whenever you wanted to check the best practice in your code, we need to enable this particular checkbox. If this is not enabled, your application code will not actually execute with reference to this best practices check. So this best practices check are nothing but a predefined rule by Microsoft. And whenever we execute for example, when a table, you have created a table. Now the table don't have a index at all, or the table has an index but that does not having an alternate key selected, or the table does not have a label, right? Or an enum does not have a label, or the labels are there but it doesn't have a label ID. So all these are very minor things. It doesn't hamper your application by any means, but over a period of time it leads to a confusion and maintenance is going to be very difficult. So we need to ensure that this particular thing is done as part of every other customization, not in a very like it doesn't need any time interval to be executed, but it is very good if you execute as soon as your customization is completed so that your work can be easily done. So this is the first setup that we need to do. And secondly, there are two best practices check we can perform in the application. One is through run best practices check, this one, and the second one is through customization analysis report. So this way, to perform this particular thing, we need to use Visual Studio. Umesh, can you move to next slide, please? To execute customization analysis report, we need to actually write execute a script as shown in the deck. So the customization analysis tool also will actually run by rules, predefined rules. And if you have sometimes what can happen is we might develop something which is very particular for the customer, and some cases it has to overrule the best practices, right? Predefined best practices rules. In those cases, we need to write those particular exceptional scenario in the BP suppression file. When you don't do it, it's going to pop up again and again in your BP report. And the customization analysis tool is a tool which actually execute on your extension models and all your customizations, and it will produce a report. So you can analyze your code either through customization analysis report or from the BP best practices check that we've seen before, right? But to do this one, you need to use your command prompt, and you need to use the syntax. The syntax is actually nothing but your metadata is nothing but your package local directory, and model is your model name. XML log is nothing but the output of the file, right? So where it has to be the log of the log when you execute the script. If there are any logs, that will be stored on that XML log file. And module you can see from the model name. And car is the place where your actual output of the analysis report will be created. So this report will actually show you warnings, informations and errors, and issue list also it will show. And most of the cases it's going to give you the solution also how we need to do. Recently with one of my project, I noticed this. We ran the car report, and it says that some of the users, they were using system date.get, system date get, but the system date get feature has been deprecated by the Microsoft. It's going to be go away from the application. So what happens is there were around 50 objects, all were listed, and it was giving a recommendation also. So instead of using this, we have to use a date time util. There we have one function. Instead of system date get, you need to use that. So basically, the report gives you the issue list and the level of the severity. It could be warning information or errors. And it also gives you the location, whether it is a form, class, or if it is a method, it will give you in the sub pattern, and it will also give you the rule, right? When you say label is missing in some object, it will say BP label defined. That's the name of the rule. That you can even see it in the same customization analysis report. There is a page you can see there as well. So this is broader information about the customization analysis report. Okay, in this part of the session, we will talk about the projects and models and the packages, how to create the package and how to create the models and all those things. So project, it's nothing but your Visual Studio projects, where each project will belongs to a single model, and the project is the place you either do a customization or you perform any extensions, right? So if you could recollect, in the very first slide we talk about a similar thing. In AOT we can see the things, but if you want to perform any changes to the object, we need to create a project. That's the important thing we need to remember about, that is projects. And when we say models, it's nothing but a group of elements associated to particular model. And whenever we do any packages, right? So whenever you wanted to create a package, whenever you wanted to do a build, we will do against the model. And we can see a lot of standard models available. We have application suite, application foundation, application platform. Those are defined as models. Now we have packages. So packages are actually mainly used for your deployment purpose. And basically it is a compilation unit of one model, or it could be from several models, right? It basically consists of your binaries and metadata and other things. And model does not consist of your code. So when we create a package, when we package does not consist of your code, it will only consist of your binaries only. So when we create a package, when you apply a package in any of your environment, you cannot actually see the object from the local package directly. And if you wanted to see that, then you have to use model. If you import a model, then you will be able to see the source code and other things. But package will only generate the binaries. And package is the main thing which will be used for you to promote your code from your dev environment to any tier 2 environment, and from there on to production environment. So package is the only a source for you to deploy the code to production. You cannot use models. You cannot create a models, and you cannot deploy in any of the higher environment. You will be using packages. Okay, so whenever we try to create, these are the sum of, whenever we try to create a new model, and these are the sum of the information that we will have to be creating it. So name of the model, that's a basic thing, and publisher name, you can give your organization name. And this layer, so this layer works with the license code in a earlier version. So this you can select any layer, but predominantly we select var layer. And if you are from an ISV, you select the ISV layer there. And model versions, these are used to control these are for the versioning purpose. These are for informational purpose. This is not going to affect the system in any means. This is just a number. How do you want it to track your deployments, right? That's where this versioning will comes into picture. And model description is, you can write few words about model, why you are creating this model. It might give some idea to the new people who are joining in the team, or when somebody use your application. And when we say model display name, this is a display name. We create the model name with a few text, right, without a gap. Let's say you use the prefix with your organization name or your customer name, and then followed by some meaningful information. So that's not give a complete picture to somebody. So that's where we give the display name, proper display name, say warehouse management or advanced warehouse management, leasing management. So that's what the space is meant for. Now this is whenever we create a package, we have two ways to create the package. And first of all, we need to understand when we need to create a package, right? Or when we need to create a model. So the model should be created in the beginning of your project, right? The model should be created only once, and the project can be created based on your requirements. So we need not to create a separate model for your new developments. So you will be creating a new projects for your new developments, and there will be only one model will be present in the application. So when we say these two options, right, create new package or select an existing package. So create a new package is going to create a new model, new artifacts, everything from the scratch. So if you look at your K package local directory, and if you go to the folder which model that you are working on, you'll see the similar structure like how the other standard models are having, right? So that's the purpose of this create new package. It will create from the scratch, and anything you do add, that will stored on that particular model. So this existing package, these are actually used for a very advanced customizations, but we don't usually do this, because we wanted to maintain everything from the custom package. That is easy for us to maintain, and that is easy for us to do the deployment and all. But just for your information purpose, when we say existing package, it means it is nothing but from the package which is already available in the system, you are going to create this model. And this model, the model, let's say I created a model number 1, right? And there is another person who's creating model number 2, but he wants to use the package referencing model number 1. That means whenever you do a deployment, these two models should go hand in hand, because it creates a dependency. So we need to understand whether we need to have a dependent packages or it should be excluded. So that's what we need to see, and that's how it should be created. And sometimes we will be working on a single model, and we might get models from our ISVs or some other partners. So what we can do is we can actually import in the development environment and like model actually, and then you can create a package combinedly. That is possible, or else you can even merge these two packages in your LCS as well. In your before you go for a deployment, you can merge these two packages to a single package, and then that can be deployed. So either of the options that you can do. Okay, this slide we will talk about the updating the model parameters. First of all, when we say model parameters, it's nothing but when you run through the modeling wizard, we will see what are the standard model should be referenced, right? Should be included as the reference packages. For example, if I have to say you are creating a sales table, so the sales table is associated with the application suite. If you want to extend a sales table, your model should be referenced to a application suite. Otherwise, your system will give an error. So this is a scenario. Now, when I'm creating a model today, I don't know whether I will be working on a warehouse management. Maybe I will work on a warehouse management later 6 months now, or any other modules. So for that reason, I cannot create a new model. So instead, it is good idea to update on the model which I already work on. So that's where this comes into picture. So these are the steps we'll have to do to update the additional references to an existing model. Right. Once we perform this, we need to ensure that you are restarting the Visual Studio just to ensure the changes that you have done are reflected in the system, and then from there it works. Right.
So I think you have some demos to show.
Yes.
So I will stop presenting, and you can share your screen.
Okay. I hope you guys are able to see my screen, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So this is a Visual Studio screen. This is actually a dev box. So you can go to tools, and you can select. Sorry, you can go to view, and you can select application explorer, which is our application object tree that we've seen in the very first slide. So which is already open here. Okay, so this is the application object tree. Like we saw, now the categorization is based on the classic view, right? When the this is how we can switch the views. So when we say classic views, it is actually organized based on the object types, right? So data types, under data types you have enums and EDVs. But when we say model views, no, now it is going to show everything based on the model. So each and every model will actually have the similar structure. So each model is again clubbed or grouped through object types. Right, this is the first thing we've seen. And the next one is, if I go to the classic view again, and if I say any enum, if I go to the properties, this is a is extendable property that I was talking about. It says true. That means you are allowed to extend this enum. So wherever this says no, that enums cannot be extended. And the next one, which we talk about the labels, this is the labels, and this is the element name, and this is the name that you use to access this element in your coding in your X++. But this is the label that will be shown to the end users. This is one thing, and the next thing is on the tables. On the tables, this is the property which tells me whether the table is actually regular or in memory on TempDB. This is a property that is actually going to differentiate between this, right? And the next one is creating a package. So for creating a package, I will go to Dynamics 365 and model management and create model, right? So create model, we saw this is a name of the model. Let's say I'll give something test, and publisher is test, and you can select the layer which we've seen there. So I'll select as ISV, and you can give the description, and then this is the display name that you'll see. This is actually a model name and this is a display name. This need not to be the same. It could be, let's say, for example, DAX test, right? But here this name can be something else, testing model, right? This is actually gives meaningful information to somebody. So when we go to next, this is where we talked about whether you can create a new packages and or you can create an existing package. If you select an existing package, it will try to tell you the packages which can be available to include your customization. So most of the cases, or 99 times 99% we will use this new packages option. And when we go to next, these are the references model. That means now for this new model which I am trying to create is already referenced with application platform. It means that any objects which are part of application platform can be accessed through my model also. If there are anything, for example, if I want to do something asset leasing and if I want to use those objects, until I enable this, your build won't be successful. Once you do all these things, it will create a summary, and when we say finish, it is going to create a new model for you. This is on the model creation. Now let's say I've created a new model, but I want to include some additional references. Then to do that, I need to use this update model parameter, this option. Here it will show you the list of model names which are already available. Then you can select the model name from this list, and then you can add the additional references, and then you can complete the wizard. So this is a straightforward steps for updating the model information, right? And one more thing which I would like to show you is about the run best practices checkbox, right? So to access that, we need to go to tools and then options. Sorry. Okay, so we have to access this property options from the extensions. Let me go again. So here Dynamics 365 and options. When we go here, we can see the best practices, right? So yes, you have to enable this run best practices check. So once this is enabled, so you can do your best practices check in two ways. Whenever you create a project, those project will by default show the run best practices check. You can select that option, or you can go to this build model option, model, and then you can select the respective models, and then you can remove all the other checkboxes. You can only do the run best practices check alone. So that means this model is going to be evaluated based on the best practices rules, and it is going to give you output, right? This is one of the way that we can use the run best practices check, right? So with that, that's all I have for today. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to take that.
Thank you, Muthu. I think we have one question on the CAR. Basically, having the CAR report. Okay, so I'm not sure you have planned the session for today or not, but we are almost ending up in 5 minutes. So do you have any demo to show for how you can actually use the customization analysis report. Any demo in finance and operation?
I don't have anything at this moment, so probably we can show some other time. Maybe next session we can show that quickly.
Sure, yeah. So that would be good. Yeah, thank you, Madhu, actually. So it was a very nice session and it was very interactive. So any more questions? The floor is open to ask these questions. Any questions if you have? Okay. So I hear you, Ravinder, which you are talking about the environment setup, LCS DevOps modeling. So yeah, so I can cover it or Rachit can cover it actually, but not now, but we will definitely plan it for our next sessions. And then there are a couple of Sunil also requested that to have standard properties to be set up, forms, tables, etc., extension, chain of commands, number sequence. So this we will try to include it. Probably Muthu, we are he's already an expert, or Rachit will be able to give these sessions. Okay, and also you can come forward as a participant, as a actually volunteer, or as a presenter if you want to. Okay, so definitely you can request Rachit. You can reach him or me. Definitely. Okay. Yeah, definitely we will try to include the upgrade processes, but upgrade processes are very lengthy and we will not be able to cover it 1 hour, but definitely we can have one like 2-hour big session, then we can actually do that. Yeah, so there is one question we're seeing that appreciate if you can explain the various relation types. Madhu. So still we have 3 minutes. Yeah.
Sure. So there are 3 different relations types we have. One is fixed, related field fix, and normal relations. So the normal relations are typically just to tie up one field from table 1 to the field in the related table, right? For example, you can say sales line table item ID is directly related with inventory table item ID, right? That is this thing. That's the normal relation. When we say field fix is like you are fixing the value for that relation. That means, let's say you have a sales order, sales status type. So the sales status actually goes with either sales order or 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, which each has its own value. So that can be fixed in the relationship. Based on that, your values will be shown. Basically, if you look at the field fix and the related field fix, all these are used for controlling the records based on a predefined selected value. You are fixing this field, your source field. See, the field fix and the related field fix has only one difference. In field fix, you will define the values on the right, and the related field fix you define the value on the left. That means based on this definition, your value will be shown accordingly to the respected tables. That's the main use of this. If you want a very real-time example, we can create some tables and maybe we can show it in the next sessions. Umesh, if you plan for any like additional, when we include the additional process like LCS DevOps, we can actually quickly pick this up and then we can show them how the relation actually works in the system rather than explaining theoretically. Right?
Correct. Theoretically, even it will not be giving more sense. Practically, exactly. Doing practically would be very good. So right. Thank you, Muthu, and thank you, everyone. Okay, so we have one more thing very exciting. So obviously, we will have some dates open in between, but in any case, on June 4th, we will have the integration of Dynamics 365 with Azure Active Directory. So it's very, very, very exciting topic actually, which we are coming from Pran. Okay, and so this, if you want to connect with him, you can connect with him directly, or you can register for him for this session from your mobile through a scan button, or we will share the on the LinkedIn. If you are following us, we will definitely share the links to register it. And thank you, Muthu, for being great in this session.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Muthu. It was really great session, and the concepts which you explained will really help people who are new to X++ to understand it. And to all the participants, thanks for all the feedback, responses, Q&A. we will try to cover these advanced topics in upcoming sessions, and it's great to have all of you and all of your support to drive these sessions. Back to you, Mesh.
Yeah, thank you. In case you have any questions, you can reach us to Rachit or me individually, or you can actually post it in our group also. The post you can post it on YouTube in case you have related questions. Muthu will be answering, or if I will take the follow-up sessions, probably with Muthu and Rachit. Okay. By this, we will close the session, and you have a wonderful evening and rest of the week. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.